Philadelphia, San Jose, or DC, Los Angeles Galaxy.
Pitch Pass.
Colorado Rapids, Vancouver Whitecaps, Seattle Sounders, Montreal Impact, Tosh USA, New York Red Bulls.
Pitch Pass, your all-access credential to the people that matter in MLS. Here's your host, Greg Roach.
Welcome to Pitch Pass. Thank you so much for downloading it or streaming it at pitchpass.com. And if you haven't streamed it at pitchpass.com, go to pitchpass.com. It's a lot of fun stuff there for you to check out, and that's the easiest way for you to circulate the show, because I'm hoping that you love everything you're hearing and you're thinking to yourself, this is a really good MLS show. And then you want to tell your friends who love MLS, and then they'll tell your friends, and then so on and so on and so on. No matter how you got the show, thank you very much for listening. Let's get into it. Got a good one today. Later, we'll be joined by new FC Dallas forward and maybe the most talked about player in MLS over the offseason. I think so, maybe. Kenny Cooper will join us later, but first, we get everything Sounders related with the Seattle Times' Joshua Myers. Josh, how are you, my friend?
Great, thanks for having me on.
Oh, of course. You've got a good beat, Josh, and I can't wait to talk to you about all things Sounders. But let's go back, because you kind of broke that story on the Shalrie Joseph, and I know it's kind of in the past now, but how surprising was it for you that day when he just pops up at training?
Very surprising. I try to get out to practice as early as possible. I try to actually get out before they're even there so I can see them walk out. And so when I saw a long dreadlocks player walk out, I could see him coming from out of the locker room. And I was immediately curious, because I knew someone that looked like that hadn't been in camp. And the closer he got, I started to figure out who it was. And I must say I was shocked. And when I tweeted it out and saw the response, I'm sure everyone around the league was too.
It was always going to be a funky fit as far as how he would fare with the Sounders setup. You got a chance to watch him train. We heard Siggy's comments, and I think he was doing his best to sugarcoat that he was a little bit out of shape. How did he look to you training with the Sounders? Yeah,
it's tough. I mean, he's there for 2 days, and he hasn't been able to train with the team while the Sounders have been going for a couple weeks. So, the staff probably got a closer look at him than I was really paying attention to on the sideline. I mean, he certainly looks the part. I mean, if you haven't seen Shalrie Joseph enough, he's definitely a physically intimidating guy out on the field. He's 6'3", he's strong. I think he had a shoulder-to-shoulder charge with Brad Evans, and Evans fell to the pitch at one point, and Shalrie played on. So, he's got the size, he's got the strength. If they did some conditioning drills at the end, and you probably noticed him, struggling in that regard. But that was probably always going to be the case no matter what in terms of physical fitness. So I guess we'll have to see. I mean, certainly he's kind of a known commodity. So if you're going to make a move for him, you're kind of basing it on what you've seen. And if you sign him, you figure after a couple weeks you can probably get that fitness back in shape. That probably isn't going to be a deal breaker if he's kind of out of shape those first couple of days. So I don't know. Money was probably always going to be the biggest issue if the Sounders couldn't afford probably to take on that whole contract, obviously, and it was maybe a matter of seeing if Chivas would pick up some of that. So I think finances were a big deal. I don't know if him kind of struggling in conditioning drills after training for the first time was going to be the deal breaker.
I think every team in the league at this point in the season has some kind of interesting, some names that have kind of pop that are on trial, and Sounders just picked up another guy, and Michael Silvestre, who is going to be traveling with the team. Where do you see him fitting in with the team, if at all?
Yeah, if it's going to be somewhere, it's going to be center back. That's where the Sounders have brought in a bunch of trialists. They have another big name in Jimmy Traore. He's center back who used to play for Liverpool, and so the Sounders are looking. They brought in, probably 5-6 guys at center back, and Silvestre is the next one in the line. I think he just stayed in Arizona when the Timbers were training there. They came back to Portland, and he just stayed there and waited for the Sounders to arrive. And the Timbers said they're not, entirely done with him either. They might, stay in touch with him, keep in contact, see if something might work for them. And again, for the Sounders, it's going to come down to if the money's right, and if Silvestre's informed. So I guess he just arrived yesterday, so maybe we'll give him a couple of days, see if he can get some of these preseason games under his belt, and see how things go.
What's the buzz on the team, either through the fans or through management, about expectations for this season?
Expectations are always as high as they can be. I mean, it's for the past few years now, it's really been MLS Cup or bust. And last year, talent-wise, you could probably say the Sounders were had the talent to win an MLS Cup. Now, having the talent to win an MLS Cup and going out and winning it are two different things, but that'll stay the expectation, I think. Even though they lost Freddie Montero, and even though they're out Jeff Park this upcoming season, the expectations won't change. So whether or not they sign some replacements here in preseason or bring in a couple in midseason or think they have these guys like Mario Martinez, Christian Tiffert, Steve Zakawani, who really didn't feature the whole year last year, coming in and playing a bigger role this year, the expectations are always going to be the same from the fans and the team.
As an outsider looking at that club, I think to myself, oh, well, they lost arguably their best player in Freddie Montero. They're going to be worse. And then as I look over the roster, as I was getting ready to talk to you, I look at it and I'm like, their starting 11 is as good as any in MLS, even without Freddie Montero in it.
Yeah, withdrawn forward might have been the position that the Sounders were strongest at. When you look at Mauro Rosales has played there, Mario Martinez can play there, Christian Tiffert can play there. Even going into those are just the midfielders. I mean, David Estrada could play there. Ziggy's mentioned Steve Zakawani as being an option to push up. So when it comes to, offense and playmakers, the Sounders had some of those. Now that Ziggy has made no secret, that they're still looking for a DP forward, whether to bring in before the season starts or kind of still in that primary window, after week one starts or whether it's the midseason, they'll still be looking to bring in a guy like that. But even in the short term, in the interim, if they can't get something done, in this primary window and they have to wait until summer, they certainly have some options that can fill in there.
Now, there are a couple of things. You mentioned Steve Zakawani, who didn't feature last year. It's almost like gaining a new player. Is he going to be unfettered this year, from the start of the season?
That's what they're saying. I mean, that's what the expectation will be. He did. I don't know if he had 100% the same training regimen as the other players had. As we kind of got in, I don't know if they just wanted to push him full bore kind of on day one. But there shouldn't be, any mention of the injury or fitness, at least to start, based on what we've seen so far. So, yeah, he should be full ready to go. But you still have Mario Martinez and Mauro Rosales as highly capable guys starting out on the wing. So it'll be interesting to see what the starting 11 looks like maybe in these upcoming preseason games. Yeah,
and that was the other thing I was going to mention was Mario Martinez, who was on the team last year but didn't feature a lot. And I feel like this year, having some time to settle in with the team and the city, you'd expect him to be a bigger part of their plans this season.
Yeah, certainly a bigger part. One of the things that kind of hurt him last year was he was always kind of going in and out with the national team duty with Honduras. And that'll, still be the case this year with World Cup qualifiers in the Hex. So, maybe that's something that continues to, maybe come at the cost of MLS playing time or maybe not. We'll have to see. But, certainly a lot of people expect Mario Martinez to play a much bigger role. And you see what he does with Honduras. It's kind of a free role almost at the national team level. I don't know if he'll get that kind of freedom with the Sounders, but there's so much talent there, and he scored one of the biggest goals in Sounders franchise history in the playoffs last season. I think a lot of fans here are excited about him.
Who do you see as the front runner for that playmaker role?
Geez, that's putting me on the spot. That's like the big question of preseason right now is who's going to play up top with Eddie if they kind of keep the same shape that they've had when it was those Freddie Montero years, or maybe they change the shape altogether. If you're telling me to pick a starting 11 right now, I'd probably say Mauro Rosales might be the guy that slides into that role, and maybe have Zakawani and Martinez on the flanks. But that's something that they're going to be working on a lot these next couple of weeks in the Desert Diamond Cup down in Tucson, is kind of figuring out that starting 11 they want to have.
As somebody who doesn't have any right to throw out names, but will anyway because I might as well. Wouldn't a Zakawani coming off the bench, at least at the start of the season, make a little bit of sense? And then having a Martinez, Rosales, and Tiffert kind of behind Eddie Johnson, is that a formation that could be possible? Yeah, I could see it. I mean, if you had a blog post about, where do you think the Sounders should fit all these pieces, you would probably get, 25 different opinions from the 25 commenters that you got. There's just so many options on this team, and certainly the idea of having a guy like Zakawani come off the bench is a big one. Christian Tiffert's, an interesting story because he can play a bunch of different roles, and I don't know if he really kind of found his way and settled in last year. So, and he's kind of been hit by a little bit of an injury. We were told by Ziggy
before they went to Tucson. So maybe that'll carry over or not. We'll see if he's able to get over that. But certainly, Tiffert continues to be kind of a question mark. We'll see if he settles in and finds a role. I've kind of seen him playing mostly out wide in the scrimmages early in the year, but that's kind of hard to judge since all those national team guys were out. But, certainly Tiffert's another option. I mean, it wouldn't be a huge surprise if he's on the bench, too, and it's kind of interesting to think of a designated player midfielder, probably the highest paid guy on the team being on the bench, but that's kind of what the Sounders are faced with all these options.
Then you have Alonzo, Brad Evans. It's a very, very deep team in certain areas.
Right.
Once you get past Eddie Johnson, I know David Estrada had a really good start to last season before he got injured. Where is he health-wise? And then the second question, which I think is the key for the entire Sounders season, is can you expect 2012 Eddie Johnson in 2013?
So David Estrada, he's looking to be in great shape. He's always kind of the guy, whenever they do the conditioning drills, he's always leading the way. That guy's a fitness machine. And we remember him having kind of a great start to last year while Eddie Johnson was kind of out injured to start the year. That's when David Estrada really shined. But then he got hurt kind of through the year. I think he broke his foot and he was out for a few months, so that kind of hurt him. But he looks to be in good shape. And then with Eddie Johnson up front, it'll be interesting to see if he's able to repeat kind of the form he had. He set a Sounders record with 14 goals. And Ziggy would always credit when you have a guy like Freddie Montero next to you, a lot of times defenses will say, hey, maybe Freddie's the key to the offense. We'll focus more on him. And that opened up some space for Eddie, maybe one-on-one with some guys. If now you don't have Freddie Montero up there and defenses kind of know now that we're going to have to maybe double mark Eddie Johnson and take him out of the game, it might be harder for him. So, that'll maybe rely on some of the other guys to pick up some of the load there. But I think a lot of people are confident that Eddie himself, won't be a dip in form. If it's a dip in production, maybe it's because he's opening up more opportunities for some of the other guys. But with what he's been able to do with the national team kind of consistently the past couple months now. We'll have to see. We've seen crazier things.
If you make the assumption that Eddie is going to be Eddie and the midfield is going to be deep and talented as they are, does that make backline depth one of the big issues or things that need to be addressed? You mentioned bringing in center backs. Is that going to be a big issue for Sounders as they go through this preseason?
Certainly at center back, I would think, and maybe even at right back. With left back, they got a couple of veterans in Leo Gonzalez and Mark Birch, so you probably think that's at least a stable position. But at center back, you look really thin right now. Patrick Ianni and Hurtado have each had kind of injury issues over the seasons, and Zach Scott right now would be maybe the guy that you would pencil in as a starter among signed players going into, the opening season. So I don't know if that instills a lot of confidence. So, but I expect they'll sign one or two center backs going into the season, maybe one of these trialists if they can make the money work with Jimmy Traore or even Silvestre. They got another guy, Shani Fairclough, who's been in there. Eric Zavaleta, kind of their first-round pick, has been training as a center back. So they kind of have some options, but they kind of have to resolve things. They have to make some decisions here in the next couple months because outside of the March 2nd MLS opener, they also have the Champions League quarterfinals coming up against Tigres. So it kind of adds a little bit of urgency, I think, to the preseason. So, and at right back, you got Adam Johansson and maybe Zach Scott backing him up. So certainly I think defense is where maybe most of the fans' concerns are going in.
You mentioned MLS Cup or bust, and that's kind of been the rally cry for the team and the fan base, basically since its inception. They haven't gotten to the MLS Cup. Is there any fatigue or worry with the fan base to say, okay, every year we say MLS or Cup or bust, and then we don't get to MLS Cup, and how many years can we just hit reset and start over and then not make the MLS Cup before we raise a red flag or two?
Right. Maybe going into year 5, I don't know if we've reached that point. Certainly you might. The thing that might help, the Sounders is I remember last year going into the year, everyone was saying this Galaxy team might be one of the best the league has seen, and that was kind of, I think might have been before the Omar Gonzalez injury and things like that. But, if the Galaxy are now down to just one designated player, not knowing what Landon Donovan's doing, maybe if they drop back the pack a little bit. I mean, if the Galaxy are weaker than last year and the Sounders can find a way to kind of, stay level, I mean, if you're just basing it on last year's form, you think the Sounders still have a good chance. But you're right. I mean, the expectations have been there for a while, and every year now going forward is going to be more of a disappointment than the year, previous if they don't make it and make a run. So, patience will probably start drawing thin in the next couple of years if they're not able to get there. But kind of like I've said before, I think they've always been positioned with at least the talent to be able to make the kind of run, and maybe the fans appreciate that. But and at the end of the day, one of these days they're going to have to put together a serious run.
Yeah, I agree. And to go to the other side, they also put money into the team. It's not like the team is mismanaged so you can get upset or disgruntled about that. They're packing the stadium. They're bringing in designated players. They play an exciting brand of soccer. So it's hard to kind of be disillusioned if you take out the results and the end game and what the goal is.
Right. Consistently, yeah, over 4 years. I think they have more points over 4 years than anyone but the Galaxy, and I think that goes for goals as well. And they've kind of had 3 designated players on the team for a long while, which is a maximum. Mm-hmm. The thing that a lot of people are starting to ask now is, where's that multimillionaire DP that you're going to bring in? A lot of the DPs, outside of Freddie Ljungberg in the early years, none of these DPs have really been making over $1 million. So they're technically they're DPs because, their cap hit is $335 and they're, making more than that, but it's not generally too much more than that. And then when you compare it to the DPs that the Galaxy had last year, maybe you can start to see a gap between the production you're getting certainly at the end of the year. So, those questions are still going to be asked if they're not going to the MLS Cup and they're not maybe bringing in these world stars that the fans think that they should be watching and seeing if they're packing the stadium and bringing in some cash flow. So maybe that's one of the things. And certainly the, ownership has addressed it. And they said they're not going to let, money be something that, comes between the team they want to field. So they'll have to sign someone though and put kind of the moves where, they'll have to back it up the top. So we'll have to see until then.
Before I let you go, Josh, I wanted to get your thoughts on the Cascadia Cup controversy going on, and just a brief overview. The Cascadia Cup was a cup that is shared between Whitecaps, Sounders, and Timbers supporters. They bought it, they own the cup, and MLS is now trying to copyright it, or did copyright it in Canada. How big of an issue is it in Cascadia, everything that's going on? We see a lot about Twitter on it, and I don't know if that's something that we can gauge off of how everybody feels, or if that's just vocal people on Twitter. How big of a controversy is this Cascadia Cup thing?
Yeah, you're right. It's always hard to judge with these kind of things, because certainly it's massively important to a good group of people, and it's kind of hard to judge, if you're talking about a stadium and a fan base that extends multiple thousands beyond, kind of the Emerald City supporters and that kind of stuff. But, I think a lot of fans in the area have paid attention to it. Certainly all we've really been able to see, we haven't been privy to kind of the conference call conversations that they've been having with the league. Maybe everything's going cordially and how they want it to, or maybe it's more contentious. But I know it certainly seems odd to a lot of people that a competition that dated before any of these teams were even in MLS could possibly, be under the control of the league. And I don't think a lot of people like how that sounds, like how that feels. And, I'd be lying if I said it didn't kind of rub me the wrong way, too. But, we don't really – the league has kind of said their intentions. Maybe those are their intentions. Maybe they're not their intentions. We kind of just have to base all our opinions so far on what the supporters groups have told people and what the league has told people. But yeah, it's certainly one that remains an interesting subject out here. I look forward to seeing if it gets resolved, how it gets resolved, and if everyone is happy with how things ended up.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting because, first off, from a media standpoint, MLS isn't getting the coverage that, say, baseball, football, basketball is getting. But then even the things that you get are from official outlets. NBC Sports Network, who has a partnership with MLS, might not make this Cascadia Cup controversy a talking point because it kind of makes MLS look bad. So there's really nowhere on a national platform to have a dialogue, a back and forth, as if it were, say, an NFL situation where you could talk about it on sports radio or whatever outside of Cascadia.
Right. And another thing that comes up is, both sides of these, this issue, they're not going to speak candidly about it while they're still kind of in discussions about it. They're hiring lawyers. They're, doing all these certain things too, which makes it harder to really grasp. But yeah, I think you're right. You do see a lot of those connections between the league and partners and media outlets and certain things that kind of muddy the waters a little bit too. But I know a lot of people over here, the situation isn't muddy at all, and a lot of people are behind the fans and the groups on this one.
Thanks, Josh. We appreciate it. We'll catch up with you during the season.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Make sure you follow Josh on Twitter. Lots of great news, especially if you're a Sounders fan. You probably already are. At Joshua Myers. Myers being spelled Mayers. And, of course, follow his blog on SeattleTimes.com. As we shift to, as I mentioned earlier, one of the most talked about players in MLS during the offseason, the will he or won't he situation has finally been resolved. He is a member of FC Dallas for the 2013 MLS season. He joins us now on Pitch Pass. Kenny Cooper, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much.
Now, I'm calling you, Kenny, from Washington, D.C., and I don't know, maybe it just you're not closely identified with Baltimore, but you're Charm City's born and bred.
I am, yeah. Very proud to be born in Baltimore.
A lot of people from Baltimore don't say that when they're outside of Baltimore, Kenny. So that's very nice that you said you're proud to be from Baltimore.
Oh, I'm very proud to be from Baltimore. My wife is also from Baltimore. Her family all lives there. So fortunately, I'm still able to get back and go back most off seasons and go look at my old neighborhood and get all nostalgic. But it's a very special place to me, and I have some incredible memories from Baltimore.
Well, we'll go inside for a second. What neighborhood did you grow up in?
I grew up in Timonium.
All right.
Went to Pinewood Elementary School, and my wife went to the same school, believe it or not. And again, it's a really special place for me.
Wait, hang on. So your wife went to the same elementary school as you did, but you didn't get married till last year. What have we been doing the whole time, Kenny?
Well, we were actually in the same fourth grade class, and my family moved to Florida. My dad started a franchise, an indoor franchise down there, and through mutual friends, my wife Molly and I re-met a little later in life, and we got married last year. Finally tied the knot. Do you still have the class photo? I do, absolutely.
And the two of you are in there, and you're both looking at each other?
Yes, I'm in the back row, and she's stood right in front of me. When did you leave
the Baltimore area?
I left Baltimore, I guess it was the summer of '94.
So how old were you, approximately?
I was 10.
10. All right, because I'm listening to you, and I'm not hearing Timonium. I'm hearing Timonium, which is very non-Baltimore, Kenny.
No, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what kind of accent I have.
Sadly, you lost your Baltimore.
I went to high school in Texas, and it might just be a mix of all the different places I've lived in.
So now you're back home. I guess you call Dallas home, correct?
Well, home is where
home is
where my wife is, and I'm fortunate that we've been able to make a lot of different homes, and we've been all over the world together, and been able to share a lot of great experiences. But yes, now home is back in Dallas.
Okay, well then let me ask you this, because the last 4 years especially, you have been in a lot of different homes, and I know you're going to say this because this is a cliched athlete answer, but how important is it for you now to actually put down some roots and maybe call someplace, hopefully Dallas, home for an extended period of time?
Oh, well, there's definitely a familiarity to Dallas for me. Not just in the surroundings and the roads and schools and whatnot, but even going back to FC Dallas, where a lot of the coaching staff is the same as when I left. Shel Simon is there. He actually recruited me to go play for him at SMU. Brent Irwin, an assistant coach, was a high school coach of mine, and Marco Ferruzzi and Drew Keeshan, are both guys that were there when I left. So there's a great familiarity in the club that I feel, and it does feel like home. I'm really happy to be back, and my 3.5 years before were a really important time in my career, and my first years in the MLS, and it's great to be returning and great to return to, people who I believe have a lot of faith in me, and that means a lot.
I was just looking up, and it's your first training session with the club tomorrow, or was it today?
No, I found out about the trade last Sunday, and I was on a flight Tuesday heading down to Mexico. So I've been with the team for. Okay,
good, because I was concerned maybe you missed the Cancun trip, and I would have been like, oh, what a rub that you didn't get to go to Cancun.
No, I didn't miss that. I found out the news and headed down there pretty quickly. And, I think the club wanted me to get in as soon as possible and mix with the boys and get acclimated. And
you look really good. You look really good. Going, oh, I'm traded. Where's the team at? Cancun. I gotta join the new team. I gotta get acclimated as quickly as possible. Get me to Cancun.
Right? Yeah, there's worse places to go.
Exactly.
It was a great trip.
How hard was this off season for you? And I don't mean from a standpoint of mostly just at the end of the year, everybody was there was assumptions about what was going on with New York. And for you, it was, oh, well, they're going to be trading Kenny Cooper. They're going to be trading Kenny Cooper. How hard was that kind of looming over your head where the media just basically assumed that you are leaving? Yeah,
no, it was, looming over my head for, a couple of weeks, I think, even before Christmas. That uncertainty of not knowing, where I was going to be. But, that I think, can be part of the game. And, I think everyone that's in the game that plays professional sports knows that it's a reality of the game. And fortunate for me, I have stability, at home with my wife and together we were able to go through it. And I'm fortunate that, I've ended up, back in a place that, I'm very happy to be. It is very difficult to leave New York. It was a great club to be part of. And my wife's family is actually, like I said before, in Baltimore. Her sister lives in New York. So it was difficult to leave. At the same time, if I had to leave somewhere, Dallas is just, really a wonderful place to come to.
But I even think your situation was even more unique for athletes. I mean, every athlete knows that they could be moved at any time, but it wasn't like you were a free agent and that you could have your agent go out and say, hey, these are some of our suitors. And it wasn't like you had requested a transfer so that you said, I know that I'm leaving because I asked to leave. This was just kind of a situation where it's like, I got a contract, I'm on this team, but now everybody's telling me that I'm not going to be on the team. And that, to me, that's the hardest part is not asking for it, not being in a situation where you can do anything about it, but still having to live with it and deal with it.
Yeah, no, again, there's, a lot of uncertainty, around that time. But, it's just, it can be a part of the game. And, you just get on with it. You just deal with it the best you can. And, I'm fortunate, like I said, that I have, a great family, a great wife, people who are so supportive and, people that really help you through those times of uncertainty. So, we made it through that time and, now we're on the other side and starting a new journey.
You missed a blizzard too, so you got lucky doing that.
I missed the blizzard, yeah. It was pretty funny when, well, not funny, but you feel kind of guilty when, you're calling, back home and you see, snow in the background and meanwhile I'm looking out onto the beach, from my hotel room.
Oh, that sucks, guys. Sorry. But hey, I gotta go. We got some beach time coming up in a couple of minutes.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. I want to ask you one last thing about Red Bulls and then we can move forward and talk about FC Dallas. And I'm just going to, for a yes or no answer, do you really believe that Thierry Henry had a problem playing with you? Yes or no?
Do I believe he had a problem playing with me?
Yeah, because the media, again, we talk about the press's slant on things, and their whole thing was, well, Henry doesn't like the way that Kenny plays as far as how it meshes with him. Do you believe that was a situation or an issue?
No, I think, to be honest, I have a great relationship with him. I really enjoyed my time out there on the field with him. It's a privilege to be able to, and I told him, when I left, it is a privilege to be able to play alongside him and to be able to, train with him on a daily basis. Everyone knows about Thierry Henry and the incredible career he's had. So everyone that's a part of that club and has the opportunity to see him on a daily basis, it's an incredible education. And for me, I like to think I'm still growing and learning as a player. I think it was invaluable to have a year playing next to him, and I think we had a great relationship with each other.
So at no point when you're reading all this stuff in the papers, do you go to him in training and go, "Hey, you can play with me, right? We can play with each other, right?"
I never had a conversation with them addressing our relationship. We know ourselves, the good relationship that we have, and I hope that that continues. Even though we're not on the same team anymore, I have the world of respect for him. He is an unbelievable player. He's a great guy to be around off the field, very funny, and again, there's so much that you're able to learn from him, and I'll look back on my time with Red Bulls with great memories. It's
so weird. As I was saying that to you, I'm thinking to myself, this feels like we're like high school dating, and you heard something about somebody, and you got to go up, "Hey, we're good, right? We're okay, right?" "Yeah, no, we're fine. We're fine. We're totally fine." So let's talk about FC Dallas. And I was talking to Alexi Lalas last week on the show, and we brought up you and how it pertained to Red Bulls. And, everybody was saying, you scored 18 goals last year, and it's going to be a lot harder now without Henry. And my response was, well, he's got a former MLS MVP as a playmaker now. I don't know, like, playing with David Ferreira has got to be exciting to you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's very exciting. I mean, he, like you said, has been an MLS MVP. It's taken his team to the, MLS Cup before. And, hopefully, I'll be able to, come in and be a good part of this team. And hopefully we'll be able to get back, to that MLS Cup and, hopefully win one day. But David's a special player. I'm looking forward to playing with him. And also, a lot of the other guys that are part of this club, having a week with them in Mexico and, 2-a-day training sessions, getting to know them off the field. It's a great group of guys, hardworking, with a lot of talent. So, I think I was really encouraged having spent a week with them and being able to see, firsthand the quality there. I already know about the coaching staff and have tons of respect for them. It's really a very good team, that's together here. And, hopefully we'll be able to prove that during the season.
You guys played something like 15 games together in your first stint with FC Dallas. I don't think you've played at all with Blas Perez or Hasley. How long does the understanding of where you guys like to play and where you like the ball and how you like it delivered, how long does that usually take, do you think?
Well, hopefully not long. It's not completely new playing with these guys because there is a familiarity with them. Whether you've played with guys or not in the league, being in the league as long as I have, you know about the other players on their team, about their quality, and in Eric and Blas, they're two very good forwards, and I've enjoyed the little bit of time that I've had playing with them in the preseason, and hopefully, we'll be able to develop good relationships on and off the field and be able to produce on it. But I'm hopeful that it won't take long to, for things to click between all of us. And again, there's a familiarity with each other, I think.
You and Hasley were acquired on the same day, which a little bit interesting just because Perez was already there to sort of see these high-scoring forwards with an MLS track record be acquired at the same time in addition to an MLS forward. And you throw in Fabian Castillo. Did Schellas talk to you at the time of the deal or since then about how maybe you guys are going to be deployed and who's going to play with who?
I don't know, to be honest, what the plans are for, who will be deployed, when and where. At the end of the day, it's a squad game. You have to have a deep squad. Everyone knows that injuries can happen, and unfortunately, Dallas were hit really hard with injuries to key players last year.
Yeah.
If that happens, I think, you'll see a deep squad here, but hopefully it doesn't happen, and there'll be plenty of options for Coach, come game day.
When does that conversation ever happen? Just take us behind the scenes. Is there ever a point where he sits you down one-on-one and says, here's what I'm thinking, this is what we're thinking about doing, and this is where I see you fitting in with this club?
Well, the club's made me feel, appreciated, that's for sure. In the small time I've been with them, they've certainly made me feel that. At the end of the day, I have to go out there, work hard, and be a good professional, and earn, a spot out there when it comes game time. And, I never ever take anything for granted. Nothing surprised me in this game. And, I don't think I have any divine right to be playing over anyone else. So, my mentality is to go out there and give my best and work hard. And at the end of the day, it's my hope that I'll be good enough to earn a starting spot and be out there on the field.
Why isn't Kenny Cooper on Twitter? Was this the hardest question that I asked you this entire conversation? Whew, I don't know. Wow.
I'm not sure I have an answer for it. I don't know. I'm not sure I could give enough interesting, thought-provoking.
Kenny, you hung out with Dax McCarty for a season. You've seen how somebody can tweet. You should have glommed some stuff off of him to figure out how to tweet.
I wish I was as funny and witty as he is, but he's a great guy, and I'll leave that stuff to him.
So there's no opportunity for Kenny Cooper to be on Twitter for the 2013 season. You're kind of saying that now.
Maybe. I'll think about it.
All right. Kenny, thank you very much. Timonium's own Kenny Cooper. Thank you, my friend. We appreciate you coming on the show.
It's a pleasure. Thanks so much.
Pitch Pass.
This is your voice. This is my red, white, and blue. This is my anthem to you.
For more show information, go to pitchpass.com.